Hello, everyone out there listening. If you are listening, or if you accidentally stumbled across our video here, um, this is Dr. Inkfish, and I do have a guest today. He goes by the Captain. Name is
Uh,
Darian. You can call him whatever you like, he said.
just don't call me Shirley, late for dinner, or daughter.
That's
So,
fair. That's fair. What we're going to be doing today, since there is no E3 and we don't like to listen to people, we're going to make our own E3 here. And basically run down our guesses of what's going to show up, what we might be hearing about, anything like that. We're going to essentially run down the main three, starting off, and then have a little third party section. Inside each one of those, we're going to have, I guess we'd call it like a probable guess, something that hasn't been announced yet that we think is probably going to show up. And then for each section, we're going to have a wild card, kind of the stuff that we want that we know is not going to happen because it's video game world, of course. But just the stuff that we would like absolutely freak out about for sure. Um, we can go ahead and start with Xbox, and you're the guest, so I'll let you go ahead and start. We can start with the probable guesses that you're having.
all right, and yeah, I mean, I guess just so everyone knows, at least for the sake of my list, I can tell you straight off the bat, one, it's kind of grasping at straws for some things because you have to look at it as who makes what and who's kind of partnered together, so to speak, the second, third party companies with like the big companies. And then as time went on, just literally writing this list out, it became it's kind of slowly degraded into just a list of some mixture of some stuff as we get farther down the list, a little less coherent, but it's pretty good for this one here. So probable with Microsoft, I put in now my first thing is I think we might see from in their big showcase or whatever alongside everything else, we might see a hint of what would be Gear 6. And I think maybe, just maybe, that might see the light of day by next year, 2021. Though possibly a little bit longer out. I don't see them having that ready this year. I don't think they'd want to put that out too close to putting out Infinite, which is foregone conclusion that it's going to be day one ready to go with the Series X. So
Right.
yeah, so Gears 6, and I think yeah, it might just be like a little snip of it. Next thing, and this is another like within the next year thing. I don't think they'd want to put this out too close to Infinite, but I think that they'd want to have. They could just do a patch to the existing one. I think they'd want to put out. They could probably make some money off of putting out an upgraded, completely together version of the Master Chief Collection. One through Guardians plus ODST and Reach all in one pack.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they combine the different multiplayers together, where you could access it all through one multiplayer room or what have you, that's yet to be seen. I mean, they've done stranger things with the multiplayers through some of those games, but a more complete, conclusive pack, possibly with a revitalizing remastering of Halo 3, maybe Halo 4. I don't see Halo 4 needing that much to be able to polish and upres it, but I, not being a developer and having no one exactly detail, but I feel like it'd be a little bit easier than 3 to do, but something like that. And then my last more probable thing, and this is kind of where it comes into that it wouldn't really be Microsoft per se making this, but with the first game in the series, short of a release on the Switch, it was pretty much a spearheaded game that was like, yeah, this is on Microsoft, and it was on Microsoft's platform. This is, you're not going to get it anywhere else, pretty much kind of thing. They were championing it. I'm thinking a Cuphead 2.
I can see that. Yeah.
A lot of a lot of people liked Cuphead. I haven't gotten to play that much of it, but I do respect the crap out of the way that it looks. I think that it could have some longevity to have another game. And not everything has to be a AAA bomb to make good money to get people hyped and everything. At least in the traditional sense of being a big, hyper polished shooter or explorer or RPG or anything like that. Like you can, I feel like this would be a good but not AAA game for them to have that people would probably push and buy nearly like it was.
Hmm.
And that's not. I don't want to. I can't remember offhand who the developer is and everything, and I'm not trying to crap on them by saying it's not AAA or anything. I mean, just kind of in the scope and scale of it per se, and what the general like first perception to someone who doesn't really know much better would be. Again, what I played of it, albeit very little, was thoroughly enjoyable. So I would hope to see a continuation of the series.
Yeah, that was kind of one of those little indie darlings that kind of took everybody by storm, and I think it would be pretty. It'd be just about as much hype as a AAA game getting announced for a sequel as that would be.
Do you want the wild cards, or would you like to throw your probables?
I'll go ahead and throw my probable list out here. One of mine, my first one here, kind of goes off of what you was saying a little bit on one, but kind of the other franchise. I'm thinking we're gonna have something that's like a Master Chief Collection, but with Gears of War. I
Okay.
I could see them kind of putting, instead of us having to put a whole bunch of discs in. I know it's backwards compatible, like with all the Halos and everything. But I just think that a big Gears pack like that would be cool. Kind of combine the multiplayer with everything. Even if you wanted to put five in there, put one, two, three, four, and five in there, and kind of use that to make money for six. Kind of get that hype train rolling. I could see a Gears collection and a Gears 6 announcement, like you said, at the same time. Maybe a trailer for the Gears collection, and then like a little teaser at the end of that trailer for Gear 6. I could see them doing something like that, probably.
Yeah, I could get behind that. I wonder if they would put everything together, or if it would be like two, three, Judgment, and well, beyond, because since they have the ultimate edition of the first Gears out there already. I mean, they could. I I think it would be a good idea, honestly, to include it just to have it be all inclusive. It might be a little strange to people that
Right.
might not know that the Ultimate Edition is out there, exactly what it would entail if they didn't have that. But yeah, that's
If they're going to combine the multiplayer mode, so long as they have that like reverse horde mode thing that they had in Judgment, I'd be super happy because I miss that mode a lot. um, for the next one, this could kind of go into a wild card, but I think it's a little bit too probable to happen, and that's going to be a new Fable game. Even I don't know who the studio would be for it, but that's way too big of a license to have and way too big of a franchise to not want to put it out pretty early in the next Xbox for sure because that's going to be
yeah,
one that would get people super hyped and sell systems.
yeah, and I mean, spoiler alert, I had that in with my wild cards, but as I had told you, I also have a few, I guess, backups. So,
Right, right.
but yeah. I mean, I don't know right off the bat if we'll hear anything about it, but I don't see Fable being a dead franchise. It'd be something that I'd like to see come back. Like, I wasn't one that I ever had played that much until the point that I think it was Fable 2 was made free on Games for Gold back when you could like you kept the games for gold even when you gave up your gold subscription. And I played the living crap out of that game and gained a major dose of respect for it and for the series as a whole. So yeah, I could see them. I could see them bringing a new Fable to our doorsteps in fairly short order.
Yeah, definitely because that's just too there's just too much potential there. Um, my third one's kind of an up in the air. I just said like maybe a remake or a new sequel or something from one of the new studios that they recently picked up. They have like Ninja Theory stuff like that that they recently picked up.
Mm-hmm.
I could see some kind of a sneak release of one of their old franchises coming back in one shape or another, or something along the lines of that. Something that we completely forgot about, but now that they are owned by Microsoft, they have the funding to remake that game that they wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, with the propensity for the last few years of, I guess, the good guy Microsoft doing more cool and good things with the companies that they do have under their belt, with Rare getting out there and having replay out there and making Sea of Thieves and everything. Like whether it's a new IP, or yeah, possibly a rehashing, a rebirth of, or sequel of a previous IP that any of them would have had. Yeah, I'd say there's a pretty good chance for that. Like they seem to really be taking a better interest in what those companies are good at, what they have available in their back catalog, and paying attention that like, yeah, this is what put them on the map. This is what made them so interesting to us. Maybe we should actually do something with that.
Right. Oh, we can go on to the best, most exciting part now. We can go on to the wild cards. You can go ahead and start this one here. I'll have to be depressed about mine for a little bit.
Woo boy. Well, I mean, I generally had like three main wild cards laid out, but one of them was Fable. But then I do have some other kind of just spitballing things there. So I'm pulling, leveraging a bit hard towards Rare, as most
Hmm.
would want to do. Like, I mean, their back catalog from the days of the British microcomputers through like the NES, and then especially like most people of our general age and generation would know them a lot for what they put out on the Nintendo 64. Like their repertoire speaks for itself, and I guess the bringing a lot of that to the forefront with Rare Replay was kind of their reintroduction, saying, "Hey, we're back." So I think it's time. I would really like to see something come out of the Conquer series. We had the original Conquer's Bad Fur Day, the upgraded, updated Conquer Live and Reloaded on the original Xbox, and then short of him showing up in like Project Spark and a few other different places where they kind of deformed the living crap out of him,
Oh God,
we
yeah.
haven't really. Yeah, sorry, I had to bring that up. And good luck sleeping tonight,
Right.
everyone. Whatever night of your particular listener day you're listening to this to, have fun trying to sleep for a while afterwards. Um, it's time. I mean, even if it's not, it doesn't have to be a game that completely blows you away. Like nothing's gonna be perfect. Like even Banjo Kazooie with nuts and bolts. It wasn't Banjo 3 as people wanted, but it was something. It got some love of some sort, and people. It's been seems to have been growing on more and more people as time went on. So it's time for something for Conquer.
Yeah, like you said there, it's gonna be hard to please everybody. Once you're so far out, nostalgia is just gonna ruin your mind and cloud it. I mean, look at like Kingdom Hearts 3. 15 years out, you're not gonna make anybody happy with it. People's hopes and expectations are gonna be too high, but I could see them having a lot of fun with Conquer. There's a lot of media things right now to make fun of, and just a lot of there's just a lot of pop culture stuff that they could put into that and have a lot of fun with it. So long as
It,
they were still in the same mindset that they were back then when they made it, you know.
the crazy thing is, like, I mean, yeah, there. In addition to basically that one game that was kind of iterated on twice, there was a Conquer game on Nintendo handheld. I believe it was the Game Boy Advance, and it was a much different beast to what was on the Nintendo 64. It was a lot less raunchy. It was more akin to, your Banjo, your Crash Bandicoot, your Spyro, things of that ilk. And while a lot of people would be a bit irked if they went back that route, I mean, you could literally split things off, and you could have a split of it where you have the more happy Conquer, though I guess, uh, what is it like? Um, no, it's one series like a Super Lucky's Tale or whatever kind of fills that side, but um, you could have that split with that. But I think they need to play around with more of their series in general, and that's kind of in like my addendum notes there, like maybe, and not that there's too much that they could add to it unless they got some licensing stuff around, like fixed around like a updated version of Rare Replay, and then working on a bit more, maybe something Banjo or alongside Conquer or something like that. Like, you just want to see anything out of Rare because they've been doing pretty good lately. And then one of the bigger things that I would like to see, I kind of hope that we might see another game in this series. I believe there was work done on a sequel for it, but it never came to light. Is a new Crimson Skies game. It was kind of their out front flagship that they were showing for the backwards compatibility for the original Xbox when it came to the One. It was a fun game back then. I could turn my One X on right now, play it right now, and it would be a fun game now. It's it deserved a sequel, and yeah, I think people would enjoy it a lot if they put one out.
I think that would be a neat one, yeah, because there's not really anything else out right now that's in that same kind of vein.
No, I mean you have more realistic flight things like Ace Combat or Microsoft Flight Simulator, but you don't have anything that's a bit more arcadey. Like, I mean, it was kind of yeah, arcadey would be the best way to describe it. Just because of it being kind of a fantasy world in a way, like an outlandish version of what the Earth could have been like if Zeppelins had gained more prevalence in places that weren't named Germany. Um, yeah, fun game to play back then for the original, and I think a sequel would be good for that. In the in my addendum things, and I'm gonna bring these two out like because kind of already condensed the Rare into just about everything, but might be something that I put off that you might want to tag on to there if you know where I'm going. But another game of similar vein that I don't honestly think has backwards compatibility officially anymore. I think it did for a while, but it was kind of buggy back in the 360 days. Was Bloodwake. Kind of a similar
Hmm.
vein of a game, but it's boat combat.
Yeah.
It's like a boat combat kind of version of like mixing Crimson Skies and I guess to an extent something like Twisted Metal a little bit. Like if I remember correctly, you had certain objectives for certain missions or whatever. It wasn't just kill everything. It might be like take out certain types of things or get from point A to point B at a certain time. But it was a genuinely fun game, and I know for a fact that they actually were working on Bloodwake 2, the original company that made it, which I can't think of who it was offhand. And I believe they went out of business. I think is why, like, they had to sell off their assets. I think that's why it never came to fruition. I'd have to go back and look it up and check that, but I think just off the top of my head, that's what had happened there. So I think somewhere along the line, someone probably would have snatched up the IP, and it's an interesting concept that I would love to see another game in that series or something similar to, because you get a lot of like for vehicle combat, you get a lot of car combat, and you get more. even if it's within the vein of screwing around with fighters and like Grand Theft Auto or something like that, you get a lot more air combat. You don't get as much sea-based combat short of playing something like Lord of Warships or something like that, which
Hmm.
nothing against that, it's just not quite the same thing.
Yeah, all of that kind of went to the wayside. That used to be every other game used to be something like that. That's kind of a
Yeah.
not really a fad game, but just kind of a niche that kind of went away.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a bygone style to an extent because it kind of played into the same thing as like the popularity of like Hydro Thunder for like boat racing and stuff like that, which is still a fairly popular thing, and I believe still a reasonably prevalent like arcade machine to find if you can find an arcade anywhere. But I think yeah, I think it's just kind of a bit of a felt like a bit of a bygone era kind of thing. So that's why no one really touched it. But we're moving into the era of bringing things back, remastering them, revitalizing series, doing reimagining. So why not? In that same vein, my last little thing here is they don't particularly that I can think of have anything like this on their consoles anymore. Bit of a party game. I'd like to see them bring back Fusion Frenzy. It was fun.
Hmm.
Play a demo of it on certain copies of the original Halo Combat Evolved discs. It was like the I think like the first pressing of like the Game of the Year stamped the cases. Oh, and whether you played the demo or you played the full game, it was fun. Might have been a bit lacking compared to like a Mario Party, but you know, it was the first game that they put out there. It was a slightly different style. They ought to go for it again. I mean, the worst that could happen is that it always sells in a mediocre sense, but I'm sure it would sell enough to be worthwhile for even someone reasonably stripped down. And that's my Microsoft story. I'm sticking to it. And more is yours.
That's fair. All right, we can go ahead on to PlayStation here.
Hold on a second. You didn't put out your wild cards.
Oh yeah. All right, that'll work.
Yeah, I just kind of
Um,
rambled there for a while, and I might have covered part of the bases. But like I said, I think there's something I might have intentionally omitted from Rare.
yeah, I've got a lot here in the wild card because of Rare. Rare kind of opens up the gateway to a lot of stuff there. Of course, Perfect Dark, which that's I'll be more surprised. It's in the wild card because we haven't heard anything at all about it, but I'd be more surprised than not if they don't use it this generation in some shape or another, even if it's not early on. Be it a like a modernization of the first one or a sequel or something. They've got it really good. I mean, that was at one time the best first-person shooter out there. Especially console-based.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it took what they had revolutionized with GoldenEye and smoothed it out to an extent.
Right. As much as you could with one analog stick.
Yeah, I mean, it beat. I don't know if you prefer or do not prefer cursing on your channel. One of the few things we didn't actually talk
Oh,
about. But
say whatever you want, man. I don't care.
yeah, okay, well, yeah, but Perfect Dark beat the living fuck out of the Nintendo 64. It was just because the console. It was they pushed the limits of it, yeah. But
Oh yeah.
it refined on and iterated on what GoldenEye had done, and there's something to be said about that. There's something that possibly a little bit different that could be said about Perfect Dark Zero, but you know, everyone deserves a redemption story.
Mhm.
And I personally liked Perfect Dark Zero within reason. I didn't think it was a barn burner or a world changer, but I didn't dislike it.
Right, right. For me, this one piggybacks a little bit off of one of the new studios, and I kind of looked through a little bit the new studios that they recently picked up. I think the biggest, like, off the wall thing that still has a big cult following would be a sequel or something along the lines to that Enslaved Odyssey to the West,
Mm.
because that game was like really unique and had a big cult following to it. And that one is a Ninja Theory. I think that that one would kind of be a good one to bring back to people's attention because it was different than everything else back then, and it's especially different than everything that's out right now. I mean, probably not, but that's why it's on this. That's why it's on this part of the list.
Yeah, again,
um,
disclaimer: the wild cards probably not a good chance of a lot of them happening. It's more things that we would hope to see, would love to see, but probably stand less of a chance of seeing than anything else.
right. Kind of the coming from a gamer's perspective, just kind of something that we've been dreaming of or hoping for or something.
Yeah.
um, I would say the last thing on my list here, which could be possible, but I don't know. I just kind of want one. Is a Halo Wars 3. I think that that would be something kind of neat because of all the extra hardware and horsepower that are in these new systems that are coming out.
Yeah.
They would literally be able to make a RTS game that would be able to be hand in hand with anything that would be on PC, just because of the sheer processing power and all that. And I'm sure that they're all going to be compatible with keyboard and mouse and all that, like this generation is. I just think that that would be a good fit, just because of that was really the main limitation of RTS games on console, was that a lot of them didn't have the RAM and the processing power to actually put out something like a StarCraft that has all those calculations at one time and something like that. They were all kind of watered down versions a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think they could go quite a bit more legit with the Series X and put out Halo Wars, something more to the scale of a StarCraft.
Yeah, and I mean, not for nothing, they came pretty close with the second Halo Wars. And the first one was nothing to sneeze at for what it was. I bought it, and I think I had it pre-ordered. I got it somewhere close to day one. If I didn't, it's hard to remember exactly. The second one I've only played a bit of. I enjoyed them within reason, but I have to be in a mood for an RTS, so it's kind of part of why I could was like, I'll take it for the first one, and I kind of left it the wayside for some other games for the most part with the second one. But it's yeah, I could see them putting a third one out. I don't know if we'd see one. I guess roughly as so soon compared to the last one, but yeah, I mean. I wouldn't put it out of the realm of reason. I think that's definitely something that we will see. I just don't know when we will see it.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope. All right, I think that's all that I've got on the wild card. Kind of with the Microsoft not having as many first party studios right now, I think that they're gonna be talking that they probably picked up some more, and once the Series X actual thing comes out and they talk about the box more and stuff, I think that they'll be announcing some more parties that they picked up and stuff. So
Okay.
we'd be able to speculate a little bit more on that kind of stuff outside of the typical, obviously Forza and stuff like that that's coming too.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a good guy Xbox, a good guy Microsoft with treating some of the companies that they have a bit better, like giving them a bit more free reign, use their back catalog. It's going to help them out in general, but they're progressing better into this. But it's really hard to guess and say what would even potentially be viable to bring back. What would be because I mean, even the companies themselves, like, yeah, we'd love to think, yeah, we'd love to do this, but we just don't have the time or the resources to be able to make certain things happen. can't give you a specific one offhand, but I know, you've heard stories in the past, like, and some of it, way in the past was based on hardware limitations and stuff. But it's like sometimes you just can't make certain things possible, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what these companies are going to do, what they want to do. But it does seem like they have a lot more leeway to do what they had in the past. That just generally excites me, and I hope that between that and then Microsoft strategically bought some of the IPs and assets of various older games in the past, and I believe even some fairly recently, just to help cover some potential licensing stuff with backwards compatibility. I mean, who knows? We could be seeing some really off the wall shit coming from them soon. That'd be like, oh yeah, hey, welcome to the party.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Saturday somewhere. All right. Is it Sony time?
I think it's Sony time.
All right.
I can go ahead and start off here on the PlayStation. I could write a whole book on both departments here in PlayStation.
Yeah.
But for for the most likely ones, I mean, Horizon Zero Dawn is going to be a launch title. They haven't announced it, but it's going to be. Seeing how that's pretty much the only PS5 title that they're talking about. Because, I mean, everything else is, popping its load right at the end of the PS4 with The Last of Us and all that coming out right at the end. That one's going to be a launch title. I mean, because if not, then there is no launch title for PlayStation.
Unless they come out swinging with anything that we might have on our list here.
Right, right.
Just about anything. I have one thing that I think is probable, but I don't think would be a world burner for it. I think it would be a good second game to have, but we'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
mean, yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn 2 or Horizon 2 or whatever they decide to call it exactly, most definitely coming. I'd lay odds alongside you that a pretty good chance that it will be a release, but if it isn't, I'm sure they have something else. I hope they have something else up their
And
sleeve.
if it's not a launch title, it'll be within 6 months of launch.
Yeah, I'd say 6 to 8 months or
Yeah,
so.
it'll be spring game if it's not a launch title, for sure. Um, I would say that another one would be Uncharted, and I think that they would do a sequel with it because of the way that Uncharted 4 ended. There's technically two different ways that they could go with a sequel, and that's two more ways than they would be able to go with a prequel since they've kind of had prequel missions. They had Golden Abyss on the Vita, which was a prequel to the first one, and then and throughout the other Uncharted games, they've had prequel flashbacks and such. Where I don't know if they would be able both as Nathan Drake as like a kid and then as like a teenager. Where I don't think that they would be able to muster up enough for a cohesive prequel that hasn't already touched on that stuff. But yeah, a sequel is definitely in there somewhere. I know that it would be it wouldn't be too early on since they're just getting off of the hype of The Last of Us, but I'm not convinced that the entire team was working on The Last of Us. They might have had Uncharted people in the background there building the framework and stuff. So I could see that coming maybe within the first year and a half of the system.
Mm, yeah.
Because, I mean, they have a pretty decent turnaround rate there at Naughty Dog. And I know that they've gained more people since from Uncharted 4 to The Last of Us Part 2. They've gained more people. So they're probably going to be a little bit even more efficient on top of that.
You'd hope, and especially being associated with Sony, they should have a pretty good grasp of how to work with the hardware. So, and yeah, Naughty Dog, they have a consistent, impressive turnaround time for pretty much everything that they've done. So, I wouldn't put it past them to be able to just pump out whatever they want to within a fairly reasonable time. Hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
not killing themselves in the process, but.
On that, it's kind of a tricky one because most of my PlayStation guesses are wild card. But
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, mine are kind of mixed together too. So
right, I would say another one, possibly just to get another first party one out there that's a good like pick it up with the console kind of game to kind of spread the ratings out a little bit would be a new MotorStorm game
hmm, yeah,
because I was thinking like Media Molecule that makes like Little Big Planet and stuff. They just got off of Dreams, so I doubt that they'd have something else ready. So I'm thinking whatever team that they gave MotorStorm to. Now I don't know if it's still the original team or not, but I see some instance of MotorStorm possibly coming out because it's been a little while. It's been kind of a lot while since we've had one, but I think that would be a good that or my next guess would be a good like kind of rated E for everyone game to come out at launch because you know Horizon's going to be an M. They kind of want to have a game for you're buying it for your kid for Christmas. Kind of want to have that option too. The next one I have on that, it's basically the same thing. Would be like Knack 3 or some kind of another Knack game because those sold well enough to warrant sequels and stuff to them. So if not that, something else in the same vein of an E-rated game to kind of have on that launch cart because that looks really good. Because if you're stuck with like all these M-rated games, you're kind of stuck with nothing to buy for your kid. Granted, they just said that Fortnite's coming out for it and stuff, but you know, there's nothing really to unwrap that on Christmas or whatever you're buying it for.
yeah. Unless you're giving them what do they call them, like V-Bucks or whatever,
Yeah,
or like I think today I saw at the store it was like you could buy a case of I think it was a PlayStation 4 case for had like it was like a Fortnite case with like some sort of DLC or something like that in it, but it literally just had a download code. But it was a physical case you could unwrap.
they
Like
had
it
that
just
with it was some kind of Frost bundle or something or other with Fortnite before. They've had physical cases, but yeah, they just come with like DLC skin packs and V Bucks in them and stuff.
I mean, let's be fair here. Like, with Fortnite coming to the new consoles is kind of a foregone conclusion. It's turning into the Skyrim meme of it being everywhere. Like, I'm waiting for Fortnite to download on my Apple Watch. So,
Right.
yeah, it would need something to appeal more to the kids, and I might have something that would apply to that too.
Mm-hmm.
You got anything else? Want to run down some more wild cards or anything? Just
Oh.
come out the way, or
Yeah, we can run through the wild cards, I guess. These are really gonna hurt my feelings. God damn it. The biggest one that we missed out for me, we missed out completely this whole generation is Resistance, cause god damn that was so good. And I think now would be the best time of any because Insomniac just got bought as a PlayStation first party company now, and they are definitely have money in their pockets from Spider-Man because they did amazing on that. And I don't know if I doubt that they're working on anything else, but I mean I think that this would be another good time to bring back Resistance. Kind of have a bring back a Sony first person shooter again. Because if you're gonna have Halo on the Xbox, it would be nice to have a Sony a Sony version on that.
yeah,
Kind of like how the first Resistance and the first Gears of War basically both came out on the same day at the same time. They both got the same review score from Game Informer, everything like that. So it was like console versus console and shooter versus shooter, and that was like a lot of fun to have that kind of direct competition. So like imagine like exclusive shooter versus exclusive shooter again, which I just think they would be a lot of fun to be in the middle of that. Even if one of them does suck really bad, it would still kind of be cool to kind of have that feel again because You only really feel that with like the racing games, I guess. You know, like Gran Turismo and Forza, but you don't
Yeah.
really have like direct competition. Like there's not really a story-driven third-party game like The Last of Us on Xbox, really. And
It's
like,
not, yeah, not first party.
right? I mean, Sony doesn't really have for. We've got a couple first-person shooters, but just nothing that's came out recently. You know, not to go neck and neck with theirs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will probably cry if that comes out, regardless of if it's a new game, um, remaster of the first three, put those out. Either way, well, you could do the one on the Vita too. Just remaster all of them and put them out. Um, that would be absolutely amazing for me because I loved those. And the other one, which we're both gonna cry for, is a new Twisted Metal because I think that that is long overdue, and everyone has been. What was David Joffe's last game? Was that Drawn to Life one that looked like it was in like a sketched in a notebook? And it was kind of like a hero shooter, like Overwatch. I don't think that he has done anything since then, and I'm pretty sure that he's still the like head proprietor of Twisted Metal. Since I know that he handed over like Gears, he handed over God of War, and that new guy directed it. But I'm not sure if what is it, Eat Sleep Play. I don't know if they still have the rights to Twisted Metal or not, but I know that Sony still does, and it's floating around in there somewhere. And I think that just to the fact that I had to pick myself up off the floor when they said that Tony Hawk's coming out with a remaster, I feel that the same people that played Tony Hawk are going to be the same people that played Twisted Metal back then, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have the same exact reaction.
Oh yeah. PlayStation era played one, two, three, four, and the small brawl, and pretty
Yep.
much with the exception of three, I enjoyed all of them. They were all different beasts. And I played a bit of the later ones. Head On was the later one that I played the most of. Played a little bit of Black, didn't get to as much, but yeah, I would love to see another Twisted Metal, and that's a wild card of mine. Like, I'd love to see just a good Twisted Metal, and I think it would be cool to have maybe a remastering of some of the older ones. I'm sure, even if anyone's worried about licensed music, I could almost guarantee that Rob Zombie would be willing to hand over his the rights to be able to use the music that was on four.
Oh God,
He,
yeah.
he's crazy enough that he'd probably be like, yeah, here's everything that I own rights wise for my Rob Zombie music, the White Zombie music, and everything. Just fill every game with it. Like, I don't see why they shouldn't do make a new one. Why they shouldn't at least think of about a remaster or anything. People were hyped that Twisted Metal was one of the games that was available on the PlayStation Classic. It was one of the few redeeming things about the PlayStation Classic. This was one of the few of them that I believe ran fairly well, but so yeah, I would be hyped to see Twisted Metal. You got anything else or
No, I think that's about it for my wild cards. I had a couple bouncing around, but I think those are the two big ones.
all right, I'll run through my Sony stuff here. Much like you, I've had a fairly probable chance of an Uncharted game. It You're gonna hear this enough out of me, especially in the Sony stuff, but it's feeling like it's about time for another one. As you said, it was left to where yeah, there's possibilities for it, and I think I think it would fit to have that here reasonably soon because I mean Sony has a way of packing first and second party games in a way that when you think about it, it's like holy crap, that's a lot of games that's come out in the last year and a half that they've come out in such a way that you could mix and match things like an Uncharted with a Resistance with a Twisted Metal and just roll with the punches. And even if a couple of them came out roughly around the same time, whether it was launch or to go into holiday season, which would be probably the same thing this year, or around the same kind of Easterish time for the springtime launch. Like, seems like they managed to pull that off better than just about anyone. So just throw an Uncharted in there, let it show up and beat the hell out of someone come early December or something. Like, hold off a couple weeks, whatever. You guys got time, make it. um, my next probable one, and this is the one that I was kind of alluding to that might be. I don't think this series quite has the clout to be the front runner that it used to be. I think, but I think it's still a damn good series, and I think it would still be a good complementary game to go alongside an Uncharted or Resistance, anything like that, as a launch title. And it's another Gran Turismo game. You brought them up in the
Mm-hmm.
Forza versus Gran Turismo thing, and of course they're different. They were different beasts at the beginning to an extent, but they're definitely different beasts now. Looking at the last Gran Turismo versus the last Forza, but they're always. I'll stand by saying that even with some delays and the just the amount of time between some releases and everything and other naggles that people have, they're still always good games. And I think it would be a good. I think it'd be good to have another Gran Turismo out within a reasonable time span. I'd hope to hear something about one within the next year if they don't have one ready to announce this year. I think at the very least we'll see something with some cars, or whatever, that at least allude to the Gran Turismo series and some like B-roll footage or whatever during like the reveal stuff. When they just run a bunch of different things by. But I hope we hear something soon, and I think at the very least we'll hear something within the next year or so. Now my last one is just another game in the Until Dawn series. Whether it's another full-fledged game, or if the rumors are to be held true that the PlayStation VR is moving forward in its entirety, like you can take your existing headsets and controllers and take them forward with you, then maybe something like akin to like Rush of Blood or something like that. But just another Until Dawn game. Even a secondary one would be a good complementary game to have at launch. But it doesn't necessarily have to be at launch. But I think it's fairly probable to hear something about Until Dawn here reasonably soon. And a bit more wild card. I had Twisted Metal in there. We touched on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have. It was kind of hard to pick. I wanted to pick one kind of E for everyone, or possibly E10 series platformer mostly, and I went uh, with the Jack series, Jak and Daxter, so on and so forth. Like it's about time to see a new game in that series. I think it would be a game like that would be a very good complementary thing to have to put out at launch. And the Knack games weren't bad. They weren't great. They were used as a bit of a meme for a while, somewhat unjustly, in my opinion. But only played a little bit of them, so I guess I shouldn't be passing judgment one way or the other. But maybe hand it off to one of the other ones that they have available to them, one of the old reliables, the Jak and Daxter or something like that, to have something for the kiddos fairly early on. And then pick two other series that, while not as long, sort of, as Resistance, like as far as like hearing anything about them, having anything from them, they're getting kind of up there as well. I have Killzone and Infamous as wild card series that could have new games.
Yeah.
Killzone could fall right along the same vein as Resistance for something that would be more of a direct competition against a Gears or a Halo. And then Infamous was just a fun series. It give me another Infamous. That's really all I got. Like, just come on.
Yeah, I would like to see one on the new system just because of how early out Second Son came and it like graphically pushed the PS4 like crazy. Like
Well, as
it's
good as those looked, I mean, with what the new consoles are supposed to be pushing more for, faster load times, ray tracing, and better. Hopefully, although we've seen with different reports that it's basically still more of a developer thing to decide how they leverage the power as far as frame rate's concerned. So I'm gonna, just overall general better graphical experience and a better gameplay experience as far as loading's concerned, which I'm sure there's some people out there, as a quick aside, that are thinking like, well, what does loading matter as far as that's concerned? You get into the game, you start playing it. You understood how often even the smallest of games loaded different things, whether it was different sprite assets for 2D games or games of other games that utilize sprites, loading musical assets, loading different script cues for cutscenes to occur, for
mhm.
random dialogue to occur, loading planes between different chunks of a map. Say, like, if you're playing Grand Theft Auto, going from Los Santos to like the top of Mount Chiliad, you're hitting loading zones whether you realize it or not. And you could, if you go back and you play it like on the PS3 or 360, especially if you put it in like one of the older original like cooked themselves versions of the 360 or the PS3 that happened there too. If you definitely see and hit times where the loading times would like chug the game, and even if stuff's saved on drives, it does the same thing. That's and they're working to eliminate that. But as we're going into that anyway, a more open game like Infamous with already good looking graphics from the last game could look spectacular. And like I just give me my Infamous.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Well, I think from here, because this video is dragging on a little bit, I think that we're gonna stop it right here, and we're gonna make a part two on this one, just to come back, because I think that the second part here is gonna be a little bit bigger. Because once we get into third party here, there's really not too much of a limit on third party. So, plus there's all the other companies that aren't. Basically, we were going down the line doing first party only stuff. We left out all of the possible multi-plat stuff like that. So
Yep, and I can tell you this much: my list gets a lot less organized as we go down.
yeah,
So
same
we've got
here.
all the third parties, but probably I guess the next video will lead off with the big N. Figure out what they've got going on.
Yep, which is pretty wild actually, because I think out of everybody, we are less certain about their rest of their 2020 and their 2021, since they don't presumably don't have a new system coming out and stuff. Their stuff's kind of a lot more up in the air than everybody else.
Well, they're always a different beast, and I guess we could kind of allude to that in the next video. But
Mm-hmm.
it's everyone says like you're doing an apples to oranges comparison on X versus Y or whatever. Well, it's kind of is an apples to oranges comparison of how Nintendo puts stuff out versus how Microsoft or Sony puts stuff out as far as the traditional announcing of things and when they do it. So
Yep, but I think that that was a pretty successful one so far. I'm gonna try to put part two up here pretty shortly. So, thank you everyone for listening. If you did actually listen in, or if you just skipped right past the video, thank you for that too. And yeah, we'll have this up here shortly. Continue on with the part two. If you guys like this kind of stuff, let us know. We can do other topics new games as they come out, because we're both going to be getting the new systems and playing around with those and stuff too. So, well, this is us signing off.
See ya.